This is Gossip Farm, episode 22. I do not care if you have cancer. My child deserves your seat. This encounter happened about 7 months ago. A little backstory. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer of the nasal cavity, stage 2. The tumor was quite large. To get it removed, I first had to undergo aggressive chemotherapy to make it smaller. Thanks to the chemo, I had severe alopecia, hair loss, which made most of my hair and even eyebrows and eyelashes fall out. At some point, I had to go bald, but I wore a wig because I didn't want to look like a skinhead. I'm 6'4" and pretty muscular, so I thought people would assume. So once, after a long chemo session in the hospital, I took the bus home. There's only one bus that goes from the hospital to where I live, so I took that one only to see it was absolutely packed. I felt awful thanks to the chemo, so I asked a middle-aged man to let me sit. He was very understanding and gave me a spot without complaining. If you're reading this, thanks, bro. 2 stops later, enter entitled mom. A lovely whale with an I demand a parlay with the CEO haircut and a 12-some-year-old kid. It took her roughly 5 seconds to see the bus was packed, start looking for a free seat, spot me, and start marching, or, in her case, trying to fit in the aisle between the seats while shoving others aside to me. When I saw her, I knew I was screwed. She then stood next to me and decided to talk to me. This is the conversation that followed. EM, hey, could you let my kid sit down? Me? You mean me? EM, who else? Me. I'm sorry, but I'm on my way from the hospital and… EM, cutting me off. So are we. Nonsense. The stop was a few kilometers away from the hospital. My boy just broke his leg and we're coming straight from the ER. Her kid was standing next to her, without any support, clearly embarrassed. Me. He's standing next to you, completely fine. EM. Look here, boy. I am 21 years old. My kid deserves to sit down. Me. I then moved my wig a bit to let her see my bald head. EM then straight up started yelling in my face. EM. Stop making excuses and get off the effing seat, you effing skinhead piece of trash. At this point, I was baffled. I didn't know what to say. The kid was trying to make his mother stop, and we had the attention of the whole bus. She then grabbed me and tried to yank me from my seat. I held on tight and thankfully didn't fall off. Now enter older gentleman, OG my savior. OG. Will you shut the F up, you dumb cow? EM. Who do you think you're talking to? OG. With ice-cold voice, stop assaulting other passengers, or I will be forced to step in. Also, every dumb moron could see that the dude has cancer. EM. No, he's just an effing skinhead. OG. He's got no eyebrows, you twat. Seems like that really offended EM because she spun around on the spot and threw a falcon punch in older gentleman's face. I was shocked and in disbelief. The whole bus was flabbergasted, and the kid probably wished he'd never been born. OG then said something unbelievable, and a golden, sweet karma moment followed. OG. Okay, that does it. Harassing passengers on the bus, physical assault against a passenger, and now assaulting an officer. You're in deep trouble, lady. OG then pulled out a badge and told her to stay where she was. Then he pulled out his phone, called someone, and told her she was being arrested. I couldn't believe it. OG was a bloody cop. At this point, EM was as white as a wall. The bus had just come to a stop, so she decided she'd make a run for it, but other passengers blocked her way. She then also got charged with resisting arrest thanks to this. 3 stops later, a police car was waiting for EM and EK. The kid told me he was sorry for his mother's behavior, and I felt really sorry for the kid. He wasn't a bad child, but his mother was a hellspawn. OG then talked to me and asked me if I wanted to press charges, to which I gladly said yes, took a statement, and thankfully was kind enough to let me solve everything on the phone, so I didn't have to come to the police station for questioning. In the end, EM got some jail time. I think it was a few months and some community service. I, in return, got a good story to tell and the sweet taste of instant karma. Right now, I'm riding the same bus home on my way home from the hospital after a checkup, which reminded me of this. I should also note that the surgery went well. I was declared cancer-free and my hair is slowly returning. Also, I don't need to wear a wig anymore. There seems to be no limit to how entitled some people, and especially parents, can be. Fortunately, there were kind people on the bus who came to OP's aid. Now please go ahead and like this video. Thanks. Next up. EM wants me to lie about witnessing harassment to protect her son. So I teach 8th grade, and a few months ago I had a female student come up to me in private and tell me that a male student in her class was harassing her. She shows me text messages that he has sent her detailing highly graphic things he wants to do to her, and tells me some of the things he said to her when they are in the halls. She tells me that she has asked him to stop repeatedly, but he is still doing it, and she wants me to help keep him away from her in my class. So before I file a report to have guidance and admin investigate the issue, I spend a class period keeping a close eye on the two of them to see if I can confirm or deny anything she's saying. Once I'm looking for it, I observe the male student doing things like licking his lips at her from the other side of the room, hovering around her, and finding reasons to walk past her desk. I personally overheard him make a comment about her to another student. Based on what I've seen, I go ahead with referring the boy to admin for harassment and make contact with parents of both students to inform them that the issue will be investigated by the school and possible disciplinary action will be taken. I don't make direct contact with the boy's mother, but I leave her a voicemail and ask that she call me back. The next day, I'm in my planning period, and I get a call from the office saying there's a parent there for a meeting. Now, our policy is that parent meetings must be scheduled in advance and logged with the office. I don't have any meetings scheduled today, but I have time, so I decide to go and see what's up. It turns out to be the male student's mother in the office. She very nicely asks if we can talk face-to-face about what's going on, and for some dumb reason, I agree, even though we usually like to have another teacher or staff member present for meetings. So we go into a conference room, and I go over the allegations, avoiding names. I tell her that a female student has accused her son of harassment, and I saw enough evidence in class to refer it to the office for investigation. EM. Now, what exactly did you hear? Because I know my son, he would never harass a girl. He might say something stupid that got taken the wrong way, but that's just not who he is. So what exactly did you hear him say? I want to know what this girl is saying about him. Me. I saw him licking his lips at her and overheard him say to another boy what he wanted to do to her. EM. What do you mean licking his lips? He gets chapped lips. He might not be doing it to harass some girl. She can't just say things about him and try to ruin his life. I know my son and he is not that kind of person, no matter what some girl says. Me. Well, admin and guidance are going to investigate, and based on what they find, they'll be in touch with you. EM. So wait, what did you tell them? You can't just go and say that my son is harassing girls based on what one person says. He's already been suspended twice, and now you're going to get him expelled just because some girl wants to get him in trouble for no reason? Now I'm thinking, why did I do this? Mom is getting worked up. I have no one else there and my next class starts soon. I repeat that I just reported the things the girl said and the things I saw, and that it'll be investigated. I reiterate that I'm not the one making any final decision, and if she has an issue, she needs to talk to the principal. EM. Well, the principal hates my son. She's not going to listen. You need to go and tell them that this is all nonsense. You saw him licking his lips because they were chapped. I'm not going to have all this harassment BS. Me. Again, if you have an issue, I'm not the one to talk to. I just reported what I saw. They'll look into it. EM. But you didn't see anything and you need to tell them that. I'm telling you, I know my son, and you've got this all wrong. If he gets expelled because you don't know what you saw, it's going to be your fault. I eventually talk her down enough to get her to leave. I report to admin that the parent is hostile about the accusations and go about my day. They end up investigating and finding hard evidence that he was actually harassing 3 different girls. The boy got expelled. I wonder if such parents are actually oblivious or they're simply willing to cover for their kids no matter how wrong they actually are. In any case, I find it sickening. Last story for the day. Entitled mom tries to deny her dying son his wish and tries to kill him because the books I got for him are satanic. Some backstory. I'm in a Dungeons and Dragons group with a couple of friends from nearby, and one of the members of the group was a kid who was about 15 years old. He's a really sweet kid, likes helping other people out, and he's a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons. He also has cancer in both of his lungs. He's from a religious family that basically forces him to act pure while he's in their sight. The mom is rabid, while the dad is just a sensible person who just tries to get him to be a good kid. When he's out of sight of his parents, he just does normal teen stuff. Because of his mom, the only books he was allowed to own were Christian books and Bibles. He joined our group mainly as a way to escape his home life and his mom. A couple of weeks ago, the cancer in his lungs started to get to him, so he was taken to a hospital by his parents. He contacted me about this a day after he was taken to the hospital and said that he wanted a monster manual as his last wish, stating that he was tired of reading the same things. I bought him the book from Barnes & Noble, but considering that he's a dying teen, I got him Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes stacked on top of that. The next day, which was his birthday, he was still in the hospital, so I brought him the books as a gift. After he blew out the candles, we had cake and he started opening gifts. Mine was the first to be opened. Seeing what they were, he immediately got this humongous grin on his face and hugged me. Meanwhile, his mom stared down at the books with a look of pure disgust, with her husband staring at her with this wary look in his eyes. She picks up one of the books and relights one of the candles and holds the damn book over it to try and set it on fire. I managed to stop her and demand, "What are you doing?" He asked me to get those books, and I'm not going to let you take them away. His mom simply stared me down and said something along the lines of the books being sinful satanics and full of evil, and that her son had no business with them. I retort and say that her son can read what he wants and that she shouldn't have to force him to be Christian. She starts getting red in the face and yelling at me about essentially forcing children to believe in God from a young age. I state that I'm a Baptist, which I actually am, and say that faith in God is a matter between God and the individual. She turns red all over and actively starts to try and destroy the books, with me, my friend, and her husband trying to stop her. At one point, I shouted, "Would God want you to do this? To restrict your dying son's freedom of expression?" Right in her face. This just sets her ablaze. She tosses the books aside and starts trying to strangle her son, and her husband calls security immediately when she does this. Security gets here within about a minute of the two of us trying to pry the mom off of her son and drag her away, with her shouting that we're all catamites to the devils. Both her husband and my friend charge her with child abuse, assault, and attempted murder. Trial's still going, and I'll try to update this post as the trial goes on. Well, that is an overreaction if there ever was one. Poor kid. It must have been really hard growing up with this kind of mother. And here's an update from OP. Trial was almost a disaster. Me, him, and her husband all testified against her. The moment she saw us, she tried to tackle us, shouting something about divine retribution, but the officers restrained her. During the whole thing, she kept pinning the blame on me and him, calling us corrupted by sin. Needless to say, she was pronounced guilty of all 3 charges that I mentioned earlier. The moment she heard this, she went even crazier and tried to attack the judge, but officers tased her to the floor. Now she'll be serving 20 years for the other 3 charges, with 10 more on top of assaulting a court official. That's all for now. What do you guys think of these stories? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks.